We have put over $10 million in salaries into the hands of women since Toast has started. A lot of women may be in these positions of power within their own organizations where you can't push back. The people above you are paying your mortgage and you have kids to feed and whatever else that may be. Letting us be the face of that for the rest of the ecosystem, we challenge the status quo and we call things out.
Welcome back to another episode of The Leader Within. Today, I'm excited to introduce April Hicke, founder and CEO of Toast, a talent partner dedicated to increasing gender diversity within the tech industry. Given her 15 plus years of experience in leadership and how open she has been with all that she's overcome, I'm excited to have her share her insights with you. Welcome, April. Can you share with us a story that has shaped how you ultimately lead yourself and others?
Oh my gosh. Hi, Angela. Thank you. That's such a great question to kick it off. I just want to start by saying I'm a big fan of yours and thank you for having me on the show. I'm very excited for our conversation today. And I think this is really important. I'm glad that you speak with leaders and talk about leadership. I do think oftentimes we are thrust into leadership roles without, proper training. Often there are people that are given these roles. I know I definitely didn't feel ready to be a leader whenever I became one. And so thank you for sharing on this topic often, because we all do have that leader within. My story that comes to mind often is what I refer to as my core story. And when I talk with people who are prepping for a job hunt or interviews or anything of the sort, I often ask people to think about a core story, a story about them that maybe really defines who they are, how they show up in, different areas of their life, if not all of them. And I think we all kind of have this. And my core story speaks a lot to me. And I think if anyone knows me, every time I tell this story, they're like, yep, of course. But I was working at an airline a number of years ago. This is probably 15 years ago now. I was working at an airline and I was coming home from my honeymoon. And we had to connect through Toronto. When we landed in Toronto, there was a ground stop. Typical Toronto in the winter. No planes were coming in, no planes were going out. We landed and they were just pulling planes right up to the gate and getting people off and not even bringing bags off because there was only one operating bridge. It was absolute chaos. And so we all got off the plane. And if you've ever gone across the border without your bag, you would understand you actually have to fill in a form, every single person. So I ended up in this kind of holding area in the airport. And there was about probably 500 to 600 people there. There was 3 planefuls of people in this area. And it was just chaos. There was no direction. There was 3 people working at the airline counter. And now I never worked in an airport before, but I got in there and I was like, this is a shit show. Sorry for swearing, but I was like, this is absolute chaos. And so I had my badge. I worked for that airline. And so I had my badge in my bag. I put it around my neck and I ran up to the counter and I'm like, how can I help? And they were so flustered and overwhelmed and nobody quite knew what to do. And so I just did what I thought made most sense. I grabbed a megaphone from underneath the counter. I climbed on top of the counter and I just started yelling at people. And I was like, okay, we're going to form 3 lines here. And I started ushering people into these lines, standing on this counter. And I formed 3 very beautiful lines, by the way. They were just perfect for the counters. And I stayed behind the counter and helped move people through. We stayed there for about 2 hours. It's I was walking up and down the lineups, handing out forms. And anyways, my husband was very irritated and annoyed with me. He came up to me at one point and was like, I know you're trying to be a hero right now, but I want to sleep. We've been in this airport forever. We're going to go. The next morning, I woke up to a post on an internal company site and someone was like, does anyone know who this lady was? This yelling lady in the airport. And one of my colleagues read it and was like, based off what you just described, I'd say that was April Hicke. And this story, I still go back to it often because I told this story in an interview when I was interviewing for a job at PwC. And the woman who hired me there, she was like, she tells me now, she's like, I heard you tell this story, April, and it showed me resourcefulness, a drive to figure things out, passion, all of these things that I really think describe who I am as a leader and the way that I react to things on a day-to-day basis. And I'm too reactive sometimes, but my first instinct always is to like physically roll up my sleeves and jump in immediately and try and solve a problem. And I think that this story has like carried me through. And again, I tell this story over and over again because people laugh. They're like, of course April was on a counter in an airport with a megaphone. Because I think that that's how I show up all the time. And to see that we need people who have that ability and drive to just want to take control and try and create efficiency out of chaos, I think just really describes me and who I am as a leader. And I think I lean into that over and over again, that this is how I show up. That's how my team expects me to show up. And so I lean into that skill set of mine every single day. I think it really shaped who I am.
Love that story every time you share it. And there's two questions that come out of that. The first one is going to be around there's a whole concept of the bystander effect. When you're in a large crowd, you tend to kind of lean towards, okay, I'm going to pay attention to what other people do before I jump in. And what I notice about you is you're not afraid to jump in, and even through the work that you do at Toast. So can you walk us through how did you actually develop the courage to be like, hey, instead of just waiting for people to actually have their shit together, I'm just going to take that initiative and do that myself?
I think I'm just honestly, it's like that nature versus nurture kind of argument. I've always been like that. So from a very young age, I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 8. I was told I was gifted, which at the time, now we know it just, the teachers were basically like, this girl's got a very neurodivergent brain. And it's great to see how schools kind of have adapted and changed. My oldest is 14 now. And watching how he and his friends navigate school is really interesting because back then I just like always wanted to talk and always wanted to do all the things. And they used to just drag my desk out to the hallway and like put a bifold around me so no one would talk to me. And they don't do that anymore, which is great. But often when I was young, I was too loud, I was too bossy. But I always have had this drive to kind of like take control. That being said, I think that kids who grow up in an unstable home, which is what I grew up in, we have this tendency, you know, growing up with an unstable parent makes you feel like you're never really in control of things because you don't know when the lion's going to come out. In turn, it makes you a little more insecure and very fond of control. And so children, I think, from insecure homes grow up very like hanging on to it. And I think that that's kind of a piece that I've had and something that I've had to work on because it could be good and bad. There are times that I have to kind of let go of it. But my natural tendency as I've gotten older and stood on my own 2 feet is to be like, okay, let's get control of the situation. Let's turn this as efficient as possible. And it's just kind of always been the way that I've stepped into things.
Can fully appreciate your story, even when you mentioned how your desk was dragged into the hallway. I think for me, it was more so every single report card. It's like, Angela's really friendly and stuff, but she talks too much. And like today, she had to be put on the side and just like in a silent corner, or whatever. So I'm like, but that's
Look at you now. You get like your job is to talk to us on podcasts. How amazing, right? Like you get to lean into that.
100%. And then that's kind of where I want to dive into as with you as well. It's like you have all these external narratives that are spoken to you, and then combine that with your external environment where you're like, you know what, I have to be careful when the lion comes out. So you may default to people pleasing tendencies, but as a leader, you can't please everyone. So can you walk us through like, how did you learn how to actually utilize that voice effectively versus just letting all those noises suppress what is a gift?
I love that you said noise. Have you read that book, Noise by Daniel Kahneman?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read of it yet.
It's so good. I think it's behind me. Yeah, it is. I love that book because there is so much noise. I had a leader. It was actually the woman that hired me from my airport story. And that was actually my very first leadership role was the one that she hired me into. And she used to laugh and call my team like Care Bear Land. And we actually called ourselves the Dream Team because I had a huge emphasis on psychological safety, which I know, we've had a lot of arguments about it since then. This was back in like 2017. But I think that I used to really hate when people didn't agree with me or people didn't like the direction I was heading in, or I thought when I first became a leader that everyone had to agree with me and that everyone had to like me. And and obviously this is part of like coming to 40 years old now too, she told me I aim for 60% satisfaction. And when she first told me that, I was like, oh my God, that's so low. Are you serious? But then, I ended up in these roles where I was leading people who led people. And so even downstream, I had over 65 people reporting into me. 60% satisfaction is actually not bad because not everyone's going to see my vision. Not everyone's going to agree with everything that I do, and that's okay. We're not there for everyone. And specifically, when I think about Toast, the majority of the pushback we get is actually from people who benefit from the systems that we're pushing back against. So when you think anyone who's always been privileged or benefited from this system, equity feels like oppression. Anyone that's like benefiting from these systems is automatically going to feel threatened as well. And so I try and take that lens of like, why is this person not happy with what we're doing? Why am I getting this pushback? And getting curious about it. That's probably that's the best advice I give to anyone when they're in a leadership role. You have to approach absolutely everything with curiosity. Like, why is this person doing that? But I think back to Melissa telling me 60% satisfaction. And that's what I aim for all the time now.
Something that you had alluded to earlier too that I want to jump back to is also you talked about you're really quick to action things, you find efficiencies, and then you move with it, and then you've learned along the way. Sometimes I might have to take a step back. And I think that's actually one of the most difficult parts for leaders, that combination of curiosity, which you just mentioned, plus that let's not be biased to action right away, because sometimes when we slow down, we can speed up. So what did that look like for you as you continue to progress through your leadership roles, making sure you got enough context, but actually like moved at the right pace, whatever right actually means?
I think this is like a constant work in progress for me, anyways, because I think it's almost like balancing data driven decision making with trusting your gut, too. And I actually had a good leader tell me recently, a mentor of mine, he was like, April, your gut is data. And he told me to reread Blank, which is such a great book because it's true. We've already got these decisions. And I think that there's times, where I wanted to slow myself down, but almost that has been a mistake. It depends on the context too. So we recently hired someone and realized very quickly they were not the right fit. And I was like, I have to fire fast. I have to fire fast. There's like different things that have to be done quickly. That's one of the mistakes I think I've made at Toast too, is that or in my leadership journey in general, is carrying people for too long and then recognizing that they're not the right fit and you're not doing anyone any favors by doing that. But at the same time, I think that having rest and having downtime, and I like that you said slowing down to speed up. I think rest as a strategy has been really important to me because that's when I can actually sit down and think about things. And so even if I don't action something right away, I think one of the greatest things that I've developed over the past 10 years is the ability to respond rather than to react. Because I think if I pause, even responding to an email sometimes, what I would say 24 hours later is not the same thing that I would have said had I like immediately responded to that email. And so I've built into my calendar after I burnt out, as most do. The first year building this company, I like heavily built out. My mentor was like, you need to get outside, take your fucking shoes off, put your feet on the bare earth, like go touch grass, literally get outside and pull something from the forest and from fresh air. And I think if we never have time to get quiet, we'll never be able to solve problems. And so I think slowing down in my personal life and like building that time into my calendar has allowed me to make fast decisions when I need to, even if that decision is to not respond right now. I can make that decision really quickly because I like create this time for me to work through things in my head, if that makes sense. That's been probably one of the best things that I've done for myself, is setting boundaries very early on. Like, for example, I was actually talking to my nanny this morning. I'm on 22 flights over 9 weeks in the fall this year, Angela. 22 flights, some of it personal. I have 3 personal trips in there too, which is great. I'm going to see family for Thanksgiving. My husband and I are going away on a quick trip to Puerto Vallarta. So like there's like cool things in there, but there's also a lot of work. People have been asking me to go for lunch or go for coffees and these things. And I simply don't have time for it because I mean, I could fill all that time, but I know I need an hour a day in the middle of my workday to like go have coffee, go make a lunch. I go for a walk. Sometimes I like call one of my team members to make sure a fire is being put out during that time. Like that's really important for me because otherwise I think I become way too overwhelmed and I'm not making decisions properly.
So much respect that you carve that space out because what I think about is I think sometimes as very high performers, we get caught up in I must be the solution and I must be there, or like there's just so much I must or I should. And then at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, that's actually not sustainable whatsoever. And the fact that you did allude it's a work in progress, it absolutely is. And that's why I love asking that question is to help others understand that it's not an end state. It's like you're constantly figuring out because you are human and you're evolving. So
100%. Yeah.
and I want go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say I have like watched people self-implode because we still live in this hustle culture though too, right? Where you think that you have to be in everything or we have to fill our time with meetings and I think rest makes us sustainable. I like that you said that. It's not sustainable for us to like be in all of the things. There's a book, actually this one I'm going to show everyone because I want everyone to read this. This book called Rest Easy. And you can get it on Amazon. I actually found it at a spa, oddly enough. But she does a whole bunch of case studies on people who have burnt out, someone doing their PhD, a doctor, like all of these people who never made any time for themselves to just like be quiet, and especially in the middle of your workday. Again, as I mentioned early in the podcast, I'm very neurodivergent. I know that my brain does not work like the quote unquote normal way that a school or academia or whatever would want it to. And so I'm in a very privileged position where I can build my own calendar. And I know a lot of us are now, which is great. And with that, it is a non-negotiable that I have that time in my day for me just to like breathe, go for a walk. Sometimes I literally go stand in the shower, Angela. I just like let the water hit me and I just like stand there and dissociate for half an hour in the shower. But it's something that I need in my day.
And if anyone needs another layer of encouragement, I remember one of my mentors said to me, they're like, treat that time block as if you were going for a kidney dialysis.
Yes.
And they asked me, would you ever move your kidney dialysis? I said, absolutely freaking not. And then they're like, so
Never.
why would you move that time block, which you needed to reset? So I was like, okay.
Like never. And it actually says in my calendar, Jolena is the name of my VA. She's an incredible human being, but it says, do not touch Jolena. Because like nothing is to go in those time blocks. That's just my time. And I think something that's really important as a leader, and actually I talk about this with my team often. I have a lot of other founder friends, and everyone thinks it's wild that I openly share my calendar with my whole team, but I don't. I want my team to see me getting my nails done in the middle of the day. I want my team to see my do not touch time. I actually have a Friday afternoon. It's called Big Desk Energy, and it's from 2 to 5, and no one is to touch that. I am at my desk wrapping up things, or maybe I'm driving in my cabin. I don't know, but I'm not working during that time. And I want my team to have the permission to take care of themselves too and make sure that they're carving out. And when we've talked about this in team meetings, and I've told them, I have other friends who think it's crazy that I share my schedule. They're like, your team can see when you're dropping your kids off at school. I'm like, yeah, but I want my team to see that I've got that work-life integration because I think that that's an important piece that they can show up because they're also leaders now, which is crazy. We have enough employees at Toast that not everyone reports into me now anymore. They report into other team members. And so I want those women as well to have that permission in their calendars.
Way to create space for people to be human. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit. It still ties to the human side of things, but it goes back to the recent TED Talk that you did at RU. It was a quote that you had referenced that really fundamentally shaped how you moved forward. And you said, it may not be your fault what happened to you, but it is your responsibility to take those traumas and make a life out of them. So when you take that and then you take it into that self-leadership aspect, how did you leverage that to effectively lead the leader within?
This is so funny. I heard that quote on a Will Smith video, which is so strange. This is long before he was like weird like he is now. But he was talking about fault versus responsibility and how we get so stuck in fault. Well, like your spouse cheats on you, like that's your fault. Or like in my case, your parent is an addict and that's their fault. And at the end of the day, it actually doesn't matter whose fault anything is because it's your responsibility to continue to make a life out of that. And then alongside that quote, there was another quote that I read once that said, we were given this baggage to show other people how it can be unpacked. And that one I think is also so incredibly powerful. With these, I think all of us carry something, and we don't all have the privilege to show up as our full selves at work. I hate that. I hate when people say that because people of color or women or whatever. I don't know what your boss is like. Not everyone feels that they can be their same self at home that they can at work, and that's actually okay. However, I think understanding as a leader that everyone else is bringing some sort of a bag to work with them too, and leading with that empathy to understand. And this is how I try and open myself up. I try and disarm myself very quickly when I'm with clients or anyone who reports into me or whoever that may be, to be like, listen, here's my bag. I got a bit of a bag. And other people are very quick to also open up to me and be like, oh my God, I have a bag too. Here's what's in my bag. And I'm like, oh God, okay. So we're both carrying these heavy bags. Anyways, now we can get to work that we acknowledge these things. And I think that's an important piece of being able to build a relationship. Again, build psychological safety between each other. I think these are like really big important pieces of high performing teams. And when you look at, Google did that research called Project Aristotle, and what they were looking for is the key components to a high performing team. And of all the things they looked at, psychological safety was number one. So if you actually want your team to be able to show up, you need to create some sort of a shared space. And I think if anyone you talk to, I don't think there's anyone you'll ever meet that you wouldn't be blown away by how beautiful their story is, because we all have these very crazy, messy stories. And so I think creating that space for people to bring that bag has like enabled me to be a better leader, and enabled me to like connect with my team. And I think my team shows up better because they feel that they're in a great space where they're appreciated and valued.
And that's so important because when you think about what it takes to actually innovate, to be able to challenge a norm where your team member might be like, "Hey, April, there's a large fire. Maybe pay attention to this large fire before you go after that shiny object right there." If you didn't listen and if you didn't actually give them the like safety to be like, "You got to listen to me or else your company's burned to the ground," like that's where issues start continuing to snowball. And so I'm curious, like for you, because you need a team who is comfortable pushing boundaries, challenging norms, etc. So, how do you consistently model that behavior when you have so much going on? And sometimes I think it's actually hard for leaders to slow down and model that and create that space instead of saying one thing and then your behavior is opposite to what you just said.
I have like an immense privilege that I get to show up as the same person at work and at home, which could be like almost not great either. So my TED Talk just came out, like you said. And I hired a girl in July. Shout out to Kynat. She's absolutely incredible. She's our founding engineer. She's working on our tech build. So she doesn't see me as much in the day to day. She's working like on our back end build. We have a meeting once a week. And beyond that, we talk in our chat. Now, our chat is basically a Call Her Daddy podcast. It can become very unhinged on different days. We're talking about anything from like everyone having stomach issues to the guys we once dated to, and then all of a sudden quickly it's like, hey guys, we got summit stuff to talk about. And she messaged me after watching my TED Talk and she was like, wow, April, I just watched your TED Talk and I didn't realize like how professional and polished and like eloquent you are. And then I actually at first got offended because she was like, well, I just see like this, like I'm very chill at work. And I was like, oh man, am I too chill at work? Like I almost feel like it's a hard balance to find in that. I was actually kind of surprised that she said that. But then again, I'm like, okay, well, she doesn't see me with clients every day and she doesn't see me having conversations like this, which is fine. But one thing that I found to be really useful is these like stay interviews. And so I'm actually setting mine up today with my team and try to do them every 6 months, where it's kind of like, how are we doing? How are we finding balance? How can I be better? How can I create like a better space? Do you have anything that you want to share with me that maybe you haven't found a way to share with me? Because I found I got almost too busy at one point. I was in a different leadership role and I wasn't actually creating the space for my team. Not only that, we went through big changes at Toast this year. Two different stories. One of the girls that I have the utmost trust and like respect for, I almost treated her like an older daughter and I never checked in with her. Like I was like, oh, she's fine. I know she's fine because she can hold her own. And I actually kind of abandoned her. I didn't check in enough on her. And so I think I had this experience in like my second year ever being a leader where everyone on my team was trying to flag to me that there was like someone that I had hired that was a problem. And I was almost too busy to make time for my team. And I didn't realize it until it had gone too far. And actually had to come back, Angela, and stand in front of the team and be like, listen, I fucked up. I did not listen to you guys. I did not create the space. And it sucks because damage was done, like in my team's trust in me because I was too busy. So I think now one of the most important things that I have to do is like actually carving out and creating time to have conversations, not just in the day to day, not just in one on ones, but to actually have like full day meetings with my team to be like, how are things going? This is your time. And giving them time in advance to think about what they want to bring to me during those stay interviews, because the team that I have right now would be very, very, very hard to replace. And so I think these like stay interviews are a big piece of keeping that.
Thank you for sharing so openly, and kudos to you for actually owning up to that and like saying, hey, I fucked up. I think that's actually where you start
Mhm.
rebuilding trust again. And I'm going to shift gears just a little bit towards just the work that Toast is doing. And one of the, I think, research that I was reading externally was around pay parity. It's going to take at least another 100 years. And I know you and your team are paying a lot of attention to what's going on externally. So despite progress on certain critical issues, whether it's related to pay parity, representation in the tech space, etc., there's still going to be a lot of those like systemic resistance that are built in that is way more difficult for you to actually change sooner. So how do you and your team maintain that strategic focus and your North Star, but also having the resilience when you face these like, what the fuck moments? And you're like, is this a hill I'm going to die on? Or is this like something I actually should invest the time to move the needle on?
Yeah, that's a good question because it is so hard. That gender equity report came out recently that showed our peak of women in leadership and representation in Canada was in 2022 when we were at 50.3%. And now we've dropped to 42. Like we lost 8% in 3 years. It's like, man. And then we see that report that by the Days Institute that came out last year in 2024 that showed the gender pay gap in tech tripled in 5 years. It was sitting at $7,000 and now men make $22,000 more than we do. I mean, it's good because ideally I would like to put myself out of work, and hopefully this isn't a fight that we have to continue to fight. But you're right, it's hard. North Star, I remind us in all of our strategy sessions too, our mission and our North Star, and the one thing that drives every single decision that we make at Toast is increasing women's representation in tech. Period. And every single thing that we do, every single thing we say yes to has to align to that. And so I think having that as a filter has been good for us because sometimes at one point this year, we were running down a road with a tech build and I had to stop everyone. I'm like, stop. Does this increase women's representation in tech? And very quickly, everyone was like, oh, no, it doesn't. I'm like, okay. So we're not building this. This is not going to help us move the dial. Let's go back and do some more discovery and let's help us figure this stuff out. And so I think that's been a good way to like keep us going because we can easily get caught up in profit and forget our purpose. And it's a balance, right? But purpose can be profitable. We've shown it. We've done 7 figures at Toast. We are part of the 1.9% of women founders that ever achieved that number, which is incredible. And so I think, reminding ourselves of that is important. But for me, and my psychologist has helped me with this, I think like actually going and talking to women in tech and not just sitting behind our computer or like standing on stages, actually having conversations with the women that are like in these businesses, in these jobs every single day and understanding the things that they're going through is something that helps us build up our resilience. Truly, it really does. I think like I go to our Toast meetup sometimes and just like sitting with women, I'm like, fuck, so many things need to change. That like fires me up again because I think we can get pretty beat down. Again, being behind our computers, Angela, I have a full folder in my email inbox called hate mail because it comes, right? There's days where I read those reports and I just want to sit here and like, actually, I went to school with her. We hung out till I was about 19 and I've lost touch with her. I read about her in the Edmonton Journal this week. She was murdered and they actually called it femicide. I told my husband I was quite sad. I haven't seen this woman in 20 years, but I remember her. And I'm like, these are still real, huge problems for women in this country. And I think I am driven. One of my core values, thanks to Brene Brown, is making a difference. I'm like really driven. I think I am on this planet to make a difference somehow. And I see it. I see the things that we're doing. We have put over $10 million in salaries into the hands of women since Toast has started. And so, like, hearing those numbers, talking to women on the ground, reading those things can like beat you down, but then actually seeing the dial that we're moving, although progress is slow, seeing that progress, I think help us build up that resilience to keep going on those days that it's hard. I actually give the girls unlimited vacation time at Toast. And there's times where I'm like, go walk away. Like, you're done for the day, you're done for this week. Our community manager specifically, she like has to deal with things like every single day. She's reading hello at Try Toast or talking to our members or like our recruiters who are talking to candidates all the time. Like, it can be hard. So this like discovering the power of rest is really important.
Appreciate all that you and your team do and just sharing the insights there. And I know when it comes to building such a large and engaged community, I'm gonna like double click on the engaged community part, like Toast. It requires constant energy, presence, etc. So, what has been one of your biggest epiphanies in creating such an engaging and successful collective?
That's a good question. I think we were here to solve the right problem at the right time. I think people are tired of the status quo. We are seeing that progress isn't changing. In fact, the representation of women in tech has barely moved since the 80s, which is wild. And I think, Toast exists to challenge the status quo in these systems. And although a lot of women may be in these positions of power within their own organizations where you can't necessarily push back because the people above you are paying your mortgage and you have kids to feed and whatever else that may be. I think letting us be the face of that for the rest of the ecosystem and for the rest of the country has enabled us to get a lot of people behind us and be really engaged in what we're doing because maybe they, again, don't have the privilege or the power to push back. But if they can stand behind us and help propel us forward, it's kind of a way that they can use their power to do so. And I think that's been almost like a bit of a rocket ship for us is that we do things differently. We do challenge the status quo and we do call things out. I like logged onto Instagram this morning and saw a reel that was posted by my team. And I had to go into Slack. I'm like, who posted that this morning? It's so funny because it was like talking about offending men. And I was like, just one of us probably couldn't say those things, but as a collective, we're able to do those things. And I think that's what keeps people really engaged, you know?
If like folks are looking for a new newsletter to like stay posted,
Thank you.
highly recommend yours.
Oh, I'm going to tell our marketing girl that it's one gal. Her name is Jess, Queen Jess. She writes those every week herself.
I am in awe and just how she's so up to date with current events and ties it in such a way where I'm like, you've got my attention. I want to keep reading more. And your summits, the way that you engage men in panels, also very hilarious because you're bringing a light touch to a heavy topic so that it causes people to pause and be like, okay, say more. As we slowly wrap up our conversation, what's one thing that's top of mind for you that either we can celebrate or support you with?
I think this year we'll be leaning a lot more into like widening the net to women that we can support, not just through our membership, but just women across the country. So I will put a call of action because January 2026 will be going live with new and refreshed trytoast.ca that will have extra resources for women. And we're going to have a little spot where we're going to highlight podcasts as well. So we'd love to have you up there as well. And we want to support not just women that are paying the $29 a month to join the Toast membership and have access to career coaching and these other pieces that are part of that in hackathons, but we want to be able to just help everyone. And so we are rolling out new things on our website where we'll have a bot on there that's going to help with resume review and negotiating your salary, to your point. And that's one thing that I really want to emphasize to women is that we are just here for absolutely everyone to increase women's representation. So we'd love to drive more to that website.
Thank you for sharing those resources. I encourage everyone to pay attention to that because, again, another piece of research that I was reading, and I'm so bad at coding. I love when I have guests like you who are like, from this year and this person. I'm like, listen, I have like a Dory brain sometimes. So
yeah, me and you both. It's okay. I get it.
But yeah, and it was just saying how like you have these women that get to the top or get way further ahead, but they can't carry that on their shoulders by themselves forever. So when you have folks like yourself and just the incredible team that you've built around you, it means a lot. So April, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and your insights. And to everyone else that's tuned into another episode, thank you for your time and attention. It means more to me than you'll know, and I can't wait to stay in touch with you on my next episode.